when we talk about the DNB exam, so there are like 10 questions, each having 10 marks. So if I just divide them, you need to be very, cautious with respect to the time. So 100 marks are there for 180 minutes, which means 10 marks actually is for 10 marks question. You need to spend around 18 minutes to the question. I mean, it is very difficult to calculate 18, so I would say around 15 to 20 minutes. I mean, there might be 5 questions which would be like a little bit strong for you, and 5 you might not be knowing, or they might be a little bit difficult. So please make sure that the questions that at least you speak or you write well about them. So focus a bit more. Maybe you can write, but don't take more than 20 minutes in any question. So you need to take not more than 20 minutes in any questions. I mean, the question which is not really something which you don't know much about it, or there's nothing much to write about, then maybe you can finish it up in 15 minutes as well. So similarly, every question is sometimes divided into 5 marks each. So 5 marks, which by simple mathematical calculation, it becomes 9 minutes. 9 minutes means that roughly around 10 minutes is what you have to spend in that. And similarly, if there's a question which is worth 3 marks or even 2 marks, so you have to spend less than 5 minutes or around 5 minutes in that. So with this, I would just start off with the questions that came in. So first one is actually briefly describe the Brostrom procedure in the ankle joint and its indication. And if you see, the question is for 5 marks, which means that you have to spend around 9 marks talking about it. So we're talking about the procedure. I mean, the question itself, there are 2 aspects of it. One is a description of the Brostrom procedure, and another one is an indication. So that means maybe around 3 to 4 minutes or 5 minutes you have to spend on the procedure itself, and then the remaining on the indications. You have to basically describe what exactly, or what is Brostrom procedure, what does it actually incorporate, and I would also tell you about how do we do it and how it has progressed over the period of time. And the another aspect which would, I think, be more important is talking about the indications itself. So indications is something that I will be talking about. So at least you name 3 to 4 indications for doing this procedure. Okay. So talking about the description itself, I mean, what exactly is a Brostrom repair? So Brostrom is basically an anatomical repair of the native lateral ligament, which is ATFL, anterior talofibular ligament, and CFL, or calcaneofibular ligament. And hence what it does, it restores the normal joint kinematics and anatomy without compromising the ankle and the subtalar range of motion. Now, bear in mind, what we're talking about, the description is actually for the Brostrom repair. So Brostrom repair, when it was originally described as Brostrom in, I think, 1966, it actually involved an anatomical repair of the native ligaments. So initially, when it was started, it was either done using the help of any ethibonds to repair the 2 ends of the ligament, or you just repair it with the fibula using transosseous sutures. Okay. The procedure itself is supposed to have a consistent and a reproducible long-term result. But the only problem is that if the native ligaments are actually thinned out or are attenuated, then the longevity and the strength of the repair was always questionable. So that is why it turned out to be a suboptimal repair, and that is when a Gould modification was added. Basically nothing much, but just augmentation of that repair with inferior retinaculum. So this is Brostrom Gould repair, or a modified Brostrom repair. Augmentation actually just increases the strength of the repair, and this is how the chances of re-tear and reduces, and you can do it even when you have an attenuated or the scar tissue. So just talking about the ligament. So this is the anterior talofibular ligament, which you can see, and this is the calcaneofibular ligament. So calcaneofibular ligament is just around the tip of the lateral malleus, and it goes posteriorly and downwards, while ATFL is around a centimeter above the tip of the lateral malleus and above the insertion of the CFL, and it goes in the front to the articular surface of the lateral surface of the talus. So these two ligaments, I mean, as you can see, they are either cut, shortened and sutured back, or they can be sutured to the fibula itself. And then when we talk about the Gould modification, so this is what the Gould modification is. It is the repair of the inferior extensor retinaculum, which is pulled along with that all over to the fibula. So how do you fix them? The method of repair is putting the suture anchors. The suture anchors can be put either at the tip of, at the footprint of the ATFL or CFL, and then the ligaments can be repaired together along with the extensor retinaculum. Or it could have been done as in the traditional way. It was done with the help of Ethibond, and now we have fiber wires for that. And even to improve that, the reinforcement with the help of fiber tapes and Civiloc anchors. How do you do it? Traditional, it is an open repair in which you give an open, somewhere like J-shaped incision, look at the ligaments, repair them. And then the things have progressed to percutaneous and even arthroscopic all inside fixation with the knotless suture anchors nowadays. So this is about the description of the procedure itself. Risk of failure is something that I will just talk about. I thought that this should also be discussed during this talk. That what are the risk of failure when we do a Boston-Gould repair, or what are the indications of augmentation, primarily nowadays with fiber tape, or maybe sometimes even with tendon grafts. So if there's a previous history of repair, then means that the quality of the native tissue is poor. Generalized ligament laxity, the risk of re-rupture of the ligament is high. Competitive athlete, especially those involved in contact sports, and pivoting injuries, they have a higher risk of respraining. And in a pre-existing foot deformity like a cavo varus, in which the heel is already in varus, so there is increased stresses on the ligaments, and then these are the risk factors for failure of a Boston-Gould. And in those cases, actually in my personal practice also, I tend to augment it with an internal bracing technique. Talking about the indications for the repair, I think most important indication for a repair is a chronic ankle instability. So chronic ankle instability, what exactly it is, we will talk about it in the subsequent question as well. But what it means is that you have a chronic ankle ligament sprain, and a conservative method has been tried for at least 6 weeks. And then you, along with that, you have a radiological, which basically means an MRI evidence of problem with the ligaments, which can be either torn, they can be attenuated with the reduced thickness, or the ligaments can be thickened. Okay, so this is exactly what is chronic ankle instability. And frankly, if you ask me, this is the only indication for doing a lateral ligament reconstruction. But since you have been asked this question, and we have to give more points to it, so that is why I'm just to increase a bit more points, so I'm just writing down more points. So symptomatic instability with a positive clinical examination. Positive clinical examination as in you should have tenderness around the ligament, force of the ligament, which is ATFL and CFL, and presence of positive anterior drawer and varus stress test suggesting of ankle instability. And when we talk about symptomatic instability, that means the patient actually feels a feeling of give way or twisting of the ankle when he is walking on uneven surface on prolonged walking. Bear in mind, when we're talking about symptomatic instability, it should be associated with the positive clinical examination, because that means that this is because of the mechanical instability that the patient has, and it is not functional. Because functional instability, which can happen due to impaired mechanoception or proprioception, might have stable ligaments, and it might be just due to weakness of the peroneal muscles or impaired joint position sense. Another indication is a positive stress radiograph. So this is something that I have also seen, that many a time when you look at the patients clinically, they look, they have a feeling, but on the MRI, the ligaments itself, they look intact and they look very well remodeled. So, but the patients still complain of instability. On examination, it is positive. So you do an anterior draw stress test. If it is more than 5 millimeters, then the contralateral side, which is more commonly seen, or it is more than 10 millimeters, then that is an indication of a repair. And why it is important to compare it with the contralateral style is to rule out a generalized hyperlaxity. Similarly, a positive varus stress test with a more than 10 degrees uh, tilt or more than 5 degrees compared to the opposite side. Another indication, though it is controversial, so I've kept it on the last, is an acute ankle ligament rupture in a competitive athlete. This is something which has recently been coming up. It is still controversial. Most of the generalized literature is something that would not really agree to it, but there are many articles which are saying that quicker return to sport is there in patients who have